In the early hours of November 13th, 2022, a gruesome home invasion unfolded in Moscow, Idaho, where 4 University of Idaho students lost their lives. The victims were roommates Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogen, Ethan Chapin, and Xander Kernodle. Ethan was Kernodle's boyfriend. 2 other roommates survived the horrifying incident. Here are the key details about the case. The crime scene. The surviving roommate woke up around 4 a.m. to what sounded like Gonzalez playing with her dog in one of the 3rd floor bedrooms. Shortly after, she heard someone say, "There's someone here." Kernodle was on TikTok around 4:12 a.m., which could have been when she made the comment, but there's also some people that has stated that it was Kaylee who said, "There's somebody here." The roommate heard crying from Kernodle's room and a male voice saying, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." When the roommate opened her door, she saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask, walking toward the back sliding glass door. The intruder was described as 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built, with bushy eyebrows. The victims, Kaylee Gonzalez, 21, and Madison Mogen, 21, were lifelong best friends. Gonzalez was set to graduate in December 2022. She had plans to move to Texas. Gonzalez's sister, Olivia Gonzalez, considered Mogen a sister as well. The best friends were together even in their final moments, sharing the same bed as they both were stabbed to death. The arrest, after an intensive 6-week search for a suspect, 28-year-old Brian Christopher Koberger, a criminology PhD student at nearby Washington State University, was arrested on December 30th at his family's home in Pennsylvania. Koberger faces 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. The case continues to unfold, and justice is sought for the victims and their families. Now, Brian went and filed a motion to dismiss, which is kind of stupid. If he did it, then there's no need to dismiss. Here's a timeline of the killings of the 4 University of Idaho students. The killings of the 4 University of Idaho students in an off-campus home in Moscow in November of 2022 were as brutal as they were perplexing. The group of friends had gone out in the college town and returned to their shared home late. The next day, police found the 4 students slaughtered inside, and there was no signs of forced entry or damage. The slayings led to weeks of investigations from police, frustrations from the victims' families about the pace of the police work, and fear in the local community of a mass killer on the loose. Now, I know when Kaylee's parents, Steve Gonzalez and her mom, their attorney Shannon Gray, got slapped with a gag order by the court. Nearly 2 months later, Moscow police arrested a 28-year-old man in Pennsylvania on a murder warrant in the killings of the 4 students. The man, Brian Christopher Koberger, lived in Pullman, Washington, and was a graduate studying criminal justice. A judge entered not guilty pleas on behalf and he's now being held in the Latah County Jail without bail. A trial date has yet to be set. Now, the state of Idaho has come out and stated that since BK had waived his right to a speedy trial, the trial was supposed to begin in October 2023, but the state has come out and said that they want the trial to start next summer, in summer of 2024, because they don't want it going on when all the kids are in school. The lurid case has riveted the public, but police have not released a potential motive. And a sweeping gag order has kept the parties from speaking publicly or revealing further details. CNN put together a timeline showing what we know about the victim's final hours, how police came to focus on the suspect, and the progress of the court case in the years since the killings took place. Okay, Saturday, November 12th, 2022. Kaylin Gonzalez and Madison Mogen, Ethan Chapin, and Xander Knodel were students at the University of Idaho who lived in a nearby off-campus residence in Moscow, a college town of about 25,000 people. They had two other roommates in the three-floor, six-bedroom apartment. Gonzalez posted a series of photos on her Instagram at some point with the caption, "One lucky girl to be surrounded by these people every day." One of the photos shows Mogen sitting on Gonzalez's shoulders, with Chapin and Xana standing nearby. That night, Chapin and Knodel went to a party on campus at Chapin's sorority. Mogen and Gonzalez went to a downtown bar, police said. Now, Ethan did get into an argument with one of his sorority brothers, and it almost came to blows. Mogen and Gonzalez ordered at a late night food truck at about 1:41 a.m. The food truck live Twitch stream shows. They ordered $10 worth of carbonara from the grub truckers, and waited for about 10 minutes for their food. As they waited, they could be seen chatting with each other and with other people standing by the truck. The two students did not seem to be in distress or in danger or in any way, said Joseph Woodall, 26, who manages the truck. Chapin and Knodel are believed to have returned around 1:45 a.m. And Gonzalez and Mogen used a private party for a ride home about 1:56 a.m., according to police. One of the surviving roommates, identified in court paperwork as DM, told investigators she heard crying in the house the morning of the killings and heard a voice say, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." She then saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her, the affidavit said. DM described the figure as 5'10" or taller, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. The male walked past DM as she stood in a frozen shock phase, court documents reveal. The male walked towards the back sliding glass door. DM locked herself in her room after seeing the male. The document says, adding the roommates did not recognize the male. Statements by the surviving witness and other evidence leads investigators to believe The homicides between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. According to court documents, the two roommates at the home were not injured, woke up later in the morning, and summoned friends to the home because they believed one of the victims had passed out and was not waking up. A call to 911 was made just before noon about an unconscious person at the residence, police said. Arriving officers found the door to the residence open and discovered the bodies of 4 fatally stabbed students. It was a pretty traumatic scene to find 4 dead college students in a residence, Latah County Coroner Kathy Mabut told CNN affiliate KXLY. There was no sign of forced entry or damage, police said. Officers investigate a homicide at an apartment complex south of the University of the Idaho campus on November 13th. Phone records indicate that Koberger's phone was near the student's home between 9:12 a.m. and 9:21 a.m., hours before Koberger allegedly killed the students, court documents say. Moscow police issued a statement saying 4 people were found dead in a home off of campus. University of Idaho students President Scott Green announced the 4 victims were students and canceled classes Monday. Now here's a little something about Scott Green. The house those kids were murdered in was his childhood home. He was raised in that house. Moscow police issued a statement identifying the 4 homicide victims as Chapin, Gonzalez, Kernodle, and Mogan. Police said details were limited and no one was in custody. They added Moscow police did not believe there was an ongoing community risk based on information gathered during the preliminary investigation. Moscow Mayor Art Bedich released a statement called the deaths senseless acts of violence. Bedich said only limited information could be shared without jeopardizing the integrity of the investigation. Green issued a statement offering condolences to the victims' families and the community. Moscow police do not believe there is an ongoing community risk based on information gathered during the preliminary investigation. Now, how do they know that for sure? However, we ask our employees to be empathetic, flexible, and to work with our students who desire to return home to spend time with their families, he said. And during all this, a lot of parents wanted to pull their kids out of that school. Moscow police issued a statement saying an edged weapon such as a knife was used in the killings. No suspects were in custody and no murder weapon was found, police said. And they still haven't found that murder weapon. A year later, they still haven't found it. Also, based on information from the preliminary investigation, investigators believe that there was an isolated, targeted attack, and there was no imminent threat to the community at large, police said. Later in the day, police released another statement attempted to calm fears of a killer on the loose. You see, this is where it gets weird. And at first they say there was somebody in the house targeted. Then they recant that and say, well, maybe it was the house that was targeted. We hear you and we understand your fears, police said. We determined early in the investigation that we do not believe there is an ongoing threat for the community. Members, evidence indicates that this was a targeted attack. Police Chief Fry held a news conference, the department's first in the case, and reiterated there was no suspect. He also backtracked on the assurances of no one at risk. He backtracked on that statement. We cannot say there is no threat to the community, Fry said, and as we have stated, please stay vigilant, report any suspicious activity, and be aware of your surroundings at all times. 2 other roommates were home at the time of the attack and were not injured, Fry said. There was no other people in the home at the time. But we're not just focusing on just them. We're focusing on everybody that may be coming and going from that residence, he said. Now there have been reports that that house was a party house or a party spot, and it was also a drug spot. 5 days after the student's death, Koberger received a new license plate for his white Hyundai Elantra, court documents reveal. The Washington State Department of Licensing provided a redacted copy of a vehicle record which included a license plate number matching what is described as the new license plate in court documents. Detectives by them had conducted 38 interviews with people who may have information about the killings and had taken the contents of 3 dumpsters near the house in case they had held evidence, they said. Investigators also located businesses if there had been any recent purchases of a fixed blade knife, according to the police update. Investigators released a map depicting the movements of 4 University of Idaho students the night they were killed. Hoping for tips, the community investigators released a map and timeline of the victims' movements. The map shows the 4 students spent most of the night separated in pairs. The victims were likely asleep before they were attacked, police said. Xana had defensive wounds on her. If she was asleep, if Xana was asleep, why was she crying? And why was there a male voice saying, "It's okay, I'm here to help you"? And 9 times out of 10, Ethan was taken out first because he's a male. With Ethan being taken out, that leaves the killer 3 defenseless females, Xana, Kaylee, and Maddie. The victims were found on the second and third floors of their home. Idaho State Policeman's spokesman Aaron Schnell said. Malbutt, the coroner, told CNN she saw lots of blood on the wall. When she arrived at the scene, she confirmed there were multiple stab wounds on each body, likely from the same weapon, but would not disclose how many wounds nor where most were located. Ethan and Xana's room were so bad, was so blood-soaked. There was blood running down the outside wall, outside of the house, because you could see it in pictures. There was two blood trails going down outside of the house from Xana's room. One week after the bodies of the 4 students were discovered, authorities still had no suspect or weapon. This is Sunday, November 20th. Moscow Police Captain Roger Lanier said police have fielded 646 tips and conducted more than 90 interviews, Police Chief Fry said at a news conference. Fry declined to identify who placed the 911 call from the home where the students were slain, saying only the call came from the phone of one of the surviving roommates. He wouldn't confirm which one placed the call. And I actually heard the 911 tape. They played it on the news earlier today. It's not a female voice on the 911 call. It's a male voice. There were other friends that had arrived at the location, Fry said, adding the person who called 911 is not a suspect. Why would you call your friends over to the house before you called 911? Think about it. I mean, like, really think about it. Wouldn't you call, if you were one of the surviving roommates, wouldn't you call 911 first? If you found somebody, quote unquote, unconscious, wouldn't you call 911 first instead of calling the people, your sorority sisters and Ethan's sorority brothers, to the house before you called the cops? That just don't make no sense to me. Moscow police said that they have looked extensively into information suggesting Gonzalez had a stalker, but they have not been able to verify or identify one. Friday, November 29th, a Washington State University officer located a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra registered to Coburger in an apartment complex parking lot, and officials were unable to zero in on Coburger because his driver's license information and photograph were consistent with the roommate's description. Moscow police released a list of people who they believe were not involved in the crime, including the two surviving roommates, a man in the grub truck surveillance video, the private party driver, Uber driver basically, who took Gonzalez and Mogan home, the man Gonzalez and Mogan called numerous times that night they were killed, and any person at the home when 911 was called. The man they were calling that night was Kaylee's ex-boyfriend, Jack. A series of comments from law enforcement officials added further confusion to the investigation. Thompson, the Latah County prosecutor, said at least one of the victims was undoubtedly targeted in the attack. Soon after, Moscow police said they spoke with Thompson and affirmed his comments were a miscommunication. Detectives do not currently know if the residents or occupants were specifically targeted, but continue to investigate, police said, appearing to backtrack on earlier statements. Why are they backtracking? Why say one thing, then backtrack? That don't make no sense. Police had to further clarify they believe the attack was indeed targeted, but investigators have not concluded if the target was the residents or its occupants. Regarding Gonzalez, this is Monday, December 5th, people. Regarding Gonzalez possibly having a stalker, police said investigators identified an incident in October in which two men were seen at a business and one appeared to follow Gonzalez inside, and as she exited to her car, the man did not make contact with her. Okay. That doesn't mean the dude's a stalker. Maybe he saw a very beautiful woman from a distance, and he got cold feet. Maybe he was going to approach her and say, "Hey, how you doing?" or "Hey, I think you're beautiful." Maybe he got cold feet. Maybe he got nervous. Investigators said they are interested in speaking with the occupant or occupants of a white 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra. Wait a minute. 2011 to 2013. Then, why did the security guard in Washington say that Kohlberger's car was a 2015? Something's not adding up here. Is it a 2015 or is it a 2011 to 2013? Spotted near the crime scene around the time of the killings. Investigators believe the occupants of the vehicle may have critical information to share regarding the case. The police statement said, noting it had been an unknown license plate. In addition, Moscow police began returning some of the personal belongings to the four victims to their families, officials said. It's time for us to give those belongings back that really means something to those families and hopefully help with some of their healing, Police Chief Fry said in a brief video statement. I'm a dad. I understand the meaning behind some of those things, Fry said. The items being removed are no longer needed for the investigation, the police department said. Then how come Kaylee's parents came out and said they did not receive all of Kaylee's belongings? The ones that the police department removed, the Gonzalez family did not receive all of them. They're still being held in the evidence locker at the police station. If you're going to release all the belongings to the families, then by fucking God, release all the belongings. Don't keep some back and put it in the evidence room. This is Monday, December 12th. Moscow police explained why they have not released more details about the case. We are still 100% committed to solving this crime, Moscow Police Captain Lanier said in a video update on the investigation. We are not releasing specific details because we do not want to compromise this investigation. It's what we must do. We owe that to the families, and we owe that to the victims. We want more than just an arrest. We want a conviction, Lanier said. Lanier's remarks came as hundreds of University of Idaho students were taking final exams the week before the fall semester ends. Our analysts have spent hours sorting through and trying to come up with the most relevant tips first for the investigators to follow up on. They have interviewed some of the folks we've interviewed earlier in the investigation to clarify information, Lanier said. Christy Gonzalez, the mother of the 21-year-old victim Kaylee, expressed frustration over police communications on the status of the investigation into the killings in an interview aired on NBC's Today Show. It's sleepless nights. It's feeling sick to your stomach. It's just being left in the dark, Gonzalez said in the interview. Gonzalez also recounted the day she learned something had happened to her daughter. We're running around for hours just not knowing what's going on. What's happened, she said. We found out by people calling us, and the sheriff showed up about 3 hours later. Gonzalez described learning about the police interest in a white Hyundai sedan seen in the area around the time of the stabbings. Not from investigators, but from reading about it in the news release sent to her by someone else. My first thought just started being like, how long have they had this information? Where do they get this information? Was it on the camera? Gonzalez said. Trash recovered from the Koberger family residence by Pennsylvania law enforcement and sent to the Idaho State Lab for DNA testing was used to help investigators narrow down Brian Koberger as a suspect in the Idaho killings, according to court documents released on January 5th. Now here's the thing. To gain DNA from trash, you're supposed to have a search warrant. The Pennsylvania police did not have a search warrant. But here's another thing. The FBI has laid claim that they were the ones that found Brian's father's DNA in the trash. The FBI is claiming that they're the ones that collected the trash, not the Pennsylvania state troopers. So which one collected the trash, Pennsylvania or the FBI? The next day, the Idaho State Lab reported on a DNA profile obtained from the trash matched to a tan leather knife sheath found laying on the bed of one of the victims, according to the documents. On December 28, 2022, the Idaho State Lab reported that a DNA profile obtained from the trash and the DNA profile obtained from the sheath identified a male as not being excluded as the biological father of the suspect profile, the document says. At least 99.9998% of the male population would be expected to be excluded from the possibility of being the suspect's biological father. Thursday, December 29th. Police say they have received about 20,000 tips through more than 9,025 emails, 4,575 phone calls, and 6,050 digital media submissions, while having conducted over 300 interviews in the case of the 4 students slain in an off-campus home. The home where the killings took place will be cleaned up but remain an active crime scene until under police control, the authorities said. Moscow police said they have worked with the property management service company to remove potential biohazards and other harmful substances used to collect evidence, the update said. The home will be turned over to the property management company. And the property management company turned it over to Idaho State University. Koberger, a 28-year-old graduate student from Washington State University, was arrested for the killings in his home state of Pennsylvania, authorities said. He was charged in a criminal complaint with 4 counts of first-degree murder and felony burglary. He resides in Pullman, Washington, about 9 miles from the site of the crime, and was a graduate student in the university's criminal justice program. Okay. If he was going for his PhD in criminal justice, is he smart or is he stupid? If he did do this killing, why would you leave a piece of evidence behind? The knife sheath. Why would you leave it behind if you're going for your PhD in criminal justice? Is that being smart or is that being stupid? Somebody please tell me in the comments. Koberger is the owner of the white Hyundai Elantra seen in an area of the killings. Law enforcement sources told CNN. His DNA was also matched to genetic material recovered at the off-campus house where the killings took place. Sources told CNN. Fry said police will aim to prove as much information as they can about the extradition to Idaho and the criminal process, but due to Idaho state law, they are limited in the information they can share until the suspect has his initial appearance in the Idaho court. In an extradition hearing in Monroe County, Pennsylvania, Kohberger agreed to be extradited to Idaho. The judge ordered that he must be handed over to the custody of the Latah County District Attorney's Office in Idaho within 10 days. Now here's what's funny. He was arrested in Pennsylvania. He walked into the county jail there in Pennsylvania and said, "Did anybody else get arrested?" It makes you wonder, does he have a shadowy accomplice? And why, a year later, why haven't they found the murder weapon? They haven't even got any search dogs looking for the murder weapon. It's like they just said, okay, hey, we don't need the murder weapon. We're just going to get him with the DNA. You need the damn murder weapon. And another thing, the 28th of this month, the 1122 Queen Road is being torn down because the University of Idaho president, Scott Green, made the statement, "I just want this community to move on, to move past this. Why aren't they preserving the house for the jury, for the trial, so the jury can walk through the house?" They normally do that in jury trials, have the jury go to the crime scene and look at the crime scene. They're not going to be able to have a crime scene because Scott Green and the University of Idaho wanted to tear that bitch down next week. And Xander Cronolo's mom is trying to fight it. She said she does not want that house torn down until after the trial's over, which will be next summer. Kohberger made his initial appearance in a court in Latah County in Moscow, Idaho on January 5th. Kohberger smiled at his public defender when he walked into the courtroom and did not appear to make eye contact with anyone else throughout the entire proceeding, including family members of the victims who were crying in the first row. Steve Gonzalez, whose daughter Kaylee was one of the victims, was with his wife and other relatives in the front row. A CNN team in the courtroom reported, adding family members were seen staring at Kohberger throughout the hearing. A no-contact order was for the victims' family members and the surviving roommates for 2 years was requested by the prosecutor and upheld by the judge. After Kohberger's court-appointed attorney, Anne Cherie Taylor, requested a review of bail, and prosecutor Bill Thompson argued no bail should be upheld, the magistrate judge presiding over the case upheld no bail for the alleged murderer. Court documents unsealed in Monroe County, Pennsylvania, revealed a cache of items seized from Kohberger's parents' home shortly after he was arrested. The items were medical-style gloves, a silver flashlight, a black sweatshirt, black socks, and a pair of size 13 Nike shoes. An evidence log also revealed investigators took knives, a cell phone, black gloves, black masks, laptops, dark-colored clothes, and dark shoes, brown boots, and New Balance shoes. The knives included a Smith & Wesson pocket knife and a knife with a leather sheath. Criminology books, including one titled Criminal Psychology, and notebooks also were seized, along with a shop vac and personal documents, the logs show. And Brian Kohlberger also interviewed BTK, which is a local serial killer where I live at. Yeah, he interviewed BTK. And he was asking other criminals what their mindset was before they committed a crime. If they got satisfaction from killing a person. It just goes to show you how sick and twisted Brian Kohlberger is. He thinks he's actually going to get off. He thinks he's going to beat the case. Now there is one thing he might be able to beat the case with. Might, like a slim might. The prosecutor in the case has still yet to turn over all the discovery evidence. They have yet to turn over the DNA evidence. And they were passing it off. Oh, well, the FBI, they're the ones that did the DNA. The FBI is refusing to turn over the DNA evidence. It just goes to show you why they're rushing so hard to get this dude convicted and thrown on death row. Makes you wonder, why are they moving it so hard and so fast? There was one person, his name was Brent Kopaka. He was a former Marine. He was Brian Kohlberger's neighbor. And Brent Kopaka had a K-bar knife from when he was in the Marines. And Brent Kopaka had homicidal ideations. But he was killed by Pullman, Washington SWAT. About a week after the murders. So how do we all know that the real killer was killed by a SWAT team, and him being Brian Kohlberger's neighbor? How do we all know that he didn't show that knife to BK, and BK touched the knife and touched the little button on the sheath that opens the sheath? How do we know Brian's not innocent? Please like and comment and share my channel. And if you guys or my subscribers want to hear any topic, please leave it down in the comments, and I'll make sure that I get to your requests. Everyone have a good night. Have a safe holiday weekend coming up. Peace out.